And bam, Duke starts off the season beating Kentucky, number 2 Kentucky, by over 30 points. Their expectations were definitely raised and everything else. RJ Barrett is more advanced than Anthony Davis at this point, or almost. He did score 33 points. Zion Williamson debuted at 28 points and 7 rebounds. The other top freshman, Cam Reddish, came in with 22 points and 4 steals. It's the most points by a Duke freshman in their debut. And as far as the mock draft goes, after the next day, there was 3 top Duke players at the top of the NBA draft. What's going on, dudes and dudettes? So, yes, very happy, very excited that Duke got the win in their very first game, especially against an opponent, as they said, the number 2 team in the nation, and then they sadly ranked Duke number 4. I have no reason why, but this was the matchup of the number 1 incoming recruiting class from Duke, and then it gets the number 2 recruiting class in Kentucky, as it usually is. But this is the time we finally got to face them again after a few years where we did get embarrassed that one year, but this year we embarrassed them pretty good, because I mean, up by 20 around halftime, and then eventually winning by a little over 30 points, starting 4 freshmen. I mean, it's just amazing how much prepared these guys are. They're ready to go, how much more talented these guys are, even at such an early age. That's why I think this is the next coming of how like that 2014, 2015 team for Duke was, where those freshmen obviously wanted to play with each other. They already knew each other before, and it's just all that chemistry led up to that big national championship win against a very talented team in Wisconsin at that time. But definitely looking like it's going to go the same way, if not even better. They're saying this team might go undefeated, which would be crazy because Kentucky tried to do that and they lost in the Final Four, so they were the closest in most recent history. But it's definitely a possibility, but you just never know how these young millennials are going to act or how they're going to come out and stuff. So should be very fun, entertaining season. Everybody's going to be watching, hoping that Duke loses. I'm just hoping they just stay competitive and are healthy enough to have a chance when March comes around. And of course, you saw that updated draft stuff. It was literally the day before, the next day, and the top 3 picks were all Duke players, starting with Zion Williamson, then RJ Barrett, and then Cam Reddish, who they're saying Cam Reddish could be the better of all 3 of those guys. It's just depending on his motor and willingness to play basketball, if he's going to really turn it on, especially once he goes to the pros. But it's very fun. I'm very excited, very happy, and definitely looking forward to the season. USC basketball also got their first win of the season, the first game against Robert Morris. The young freshman Kevin Porter Jr. scored 15 points in his debut. The Lakers officially signed Tyson Chandler. Is Tyson Chandler the missing piece for LeBron? And the reason why the Lakers signed him is because they're not that high on Ivica Zubac at the moment. The Lakers did get a W against the Timberwolves, and it looked pretty balanced in that game. So USC also played that day as well, their first game against Robert Morris, which is a pretty talented team coming from the mid-majors, but USC ended up pulling away, which is great to see with the amount of guys that they have that came back, and then adding a lot of younger pieces like the Kevin Porter guy that I've been talking about a lot, who did go off for 15 as a freshman, which is very cool. Shaquan Aaron, you see a picture there. I mean, he just went off. He had so many dunks and just looking like typical, another one of these guys Andy Enfield always seems to find, that they're very athletic guards / forwards, and they can shoot, they can dunk, they can do a lot of stuff. But hopefully this is a different team. And Kevin Porter, at times, he kind of does look like he's not into the game, but I mean, he just has all this talent in the world, and I mean, he's just going to be very special, very interesting to see. So I'm definitely looking forward to that too. Should be awesome. And as I mentioned in the last video, I was going to do an update when the Lakers officially signed Tyson Chandler, or how I like to call him, Tyson Chicken. And yes, they did make it official, so he went through a lot of stuff, got everything, and he did play last night. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I guess the main reason why they wanted to sign him, because once JaVale McGee goes out, then there's really no rim protector or good enough rebounder, shot blocker left, because they, as you see from that next one, they don't really have that much high confidence in Ivica Zubac, even though I think he just needs more playing time, because when he goes to the G League, he does really well. He's one of the better players there, and then when you try to bring him back and don't really play him much, it's kind of a wasted spot, really. If you could get something for him in a trade or package him with something else, which I'll probably do in these next few days, maybe even later on today, in these packages that I've got of, the Lakers, because even Stephen A. Smith said yesterday that the Lakers should trade Brandon Ingram, even though I've been saying that since like last year, but of course they're just barely getting ahead of it. But yes, it should be, as you saw right there too, the Lakers did beat Minnesota. They avenged the loss at Minnesota earlier this year, and they won by 4 points, I believe. Josh Hart looked well. Kyle Kuzma looked great also. Another good all-around game. Tyson Chandler played towards the end of the game as well and did very well for them. So it's good to see him come in, a nice veteran, already plug and play, ready to go. It's great to see, and yeah, let's keep this going. Desmond King wins AFC Defensive Player of the Week. The draft was today. Chargers would draft Greg Little, offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Jaleel Dye turns things around the second half of the season, and maybe. Should the Chargers consider Tavon Coney from Notre Dame a linebacker? The Ducks beat Calgary last night, and Johnny Nansen is up for a top assistant award. After a great performance against Seattle, they gave Desmond King the NFL AFC Defensive Player of the Week. It's really cool because he had that pick 6. I'm telling you, he's on his way. Gonna have to pay a buttload of money to him. That's how well he's performing at a 5th round draft pick, but it's looking good so far. And then they're doing like a little mock draft, an updated mock draft, and of course the Chargers are all the way down just because of the record. They're like in the high 20s. It's just based off the record. So at that area, they would be picking for a team need as an offensive tackle, which is Greg Little, which is actually not a bad pick in my opinion, just because he just went to a crappier school. I don't know why, and he could have shown out more and probably been a top 5 pick, because coming out of high school he was like the number 1 or number 2 rated guy. So he obviously has a lot of talent. Everybody's been looking at him, and to get a guy like that very late in the draft somehow, it would be really awesome. Whether we get the quarterback later in the draft or not, I mean, we'll see how that goes, depending on which of these quarterbacks come out and still how good they are and if they're healthy. Then also we got them saying about Jaleel Dye, and he has to turn it around towards the rest of the season just to get better, but could have gotten a better player. I've been telling you to trade him, whether it's for Patrick Peterson or Clinton Dix, who went to Washington. And nobody's listening. Those guys can play those positions, and yet this guy Dye's been struggling a bit, but I don't know. We'll see how he does. Still no word on Joey Bosa yet, of course. And then also they said they're wondering if the Chargers should look at a linebacker coming out in next year's draft, maybe in Tavon Coney. He's a linebacker from Notre Dame, so it's kind of like you have to look at it in depth more, just because he's a rival. But last time the Chargers picked a rival from Notre Dame at linebacker, it was Manti Te'o, who did pretty well for them whenever he was healthy. So that should be something to look at towards the future. And also, really quick, the Ducks won finally again against Calgary 3-2. Good to see. Hopefully get this little streak going, more consecutive wins. And then Johnny Nansen, he's an assistant coach at USC for the football team. He got on a watch list for one of the top assistants out there in the whole entire country, so that's really cool to see. Hopefully he can win it, or see what he does in the future, whether he gets another or some type of higher level head coaching job maybe, just because obviously that opens the door. But thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know what y'all think, and have a great rest of your